at the expense of our CEO, but it is a funny status to have just like constantly on the background. Okay. So we have a name for the podcast now, the Great Yap Forwards, which feels, I don't know, maybe it feels too communist, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And there are already 2 videos online with that name, so.
Okay.
Okay. So welcome back to the podcast. This is the 3rd episode of the Great Yap Forwards. Name to be made soon. With me I have Atlas Wyatt, our journalist journalist for the Radical Times, reporting from Texas, and I am Jean-Michel, Valat De Córdova, reporting from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and yeah, welcome to the pod, viewer. Okay, so let's get started with, and this is weird. This is a little bit. We need at least one more. I mean, we don't need, but I think it would be more. Okay, do you want to start with yours, or do you want me to start with the one I published 6 days ago, or the one I wrote 6 days ago?
You think we should fully wait?
Fully wait.
See if they join.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, they're both on. Okay, Gray's offline. Gray is offline as soon as I pinged him saying he could skip this one. He's fully off, which is fine. That is, Anto is man-maxing and has yet to, I guess, see the ping. I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing something. It's a funny status. I mean, not to joke too much at the expense of our CEO, but it is a funny status to have just like constantly on the background man-maxing in all caps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, for a cis guy, especially, right? I mean, it's 8 p.m. there. I mean, he should be fine. He can join. He was informed of it a couple hours before, which is not the best. We need to get better at scheduling these. I need to get better at scheduling these, because...
Yeah, I was gonna say, who's we? It's all you, bro.
Well, I'm not the only, I'm the only one who, I guess, is scheduling them, but not the only person who should be scheduling meetings and stuff. But yeah. Alright. I'll start with mine, because it's like a lot more broad, and like... I'm gonna have to look at the actual thing that I wrote, because it is right on the edge of what we should be covering on the weekly pod. And I guess I can talk about the ones that I edited for Tim and Antonio and JR, because I read them and had some sort of outcome in steered them towards it, a certain direction. But I would prefer them to be there so they can explain their own words and stuff like that. But beggars can't be choosers. So why put America last? So the title is sort of just like basically this article came about when I thought about the title, and then I'm like, I couldn't write something about that. So I did. And the idea is sort of, I guess, that it's sort of stemming from this project I have for my one of my classes here at Washington College, where one of the projects that I have which is there's a semester long group presentation over the semester. So there's one initially 2 days after we did it, after we grouped together, and then there's a midterm and a final. And I've been thinking about it a lot, just because I'm thinking about what I have to do for the final presentation. And this whole idea of nationalism, I mean, obviously nationalism is not, it's a new concept, right? Or relatively new in like the history of the world, right? When we were reading about like Athens at St. John's, that's not like a national state, right? It's a polis, and it's a grouping of people that there's an us there, right? But it's not necessarily like Athens becomes the Athenian Empire and that crumbles, but there's no nation there, right? There's just like one city that sort of dominated the area, and then continue to do that. And the same thing with Rome and the Incan Empire or whatever, right? It's that sort of pattern. And there's like a nation, there's an idea, there's a national myth, but the idea of nationalism rises in the 19th century when sort of allegiance to the crown and when there is more warfare and more, Western imperialism and stuff like this. So my thought process behind, I guess, this article was that I wanted to sort of clarify that this idea of nationalism is antithetical to the benefits, like it undermines the people's welfare in the nation, because it claims to put America first, or at least particularly for America, right? Because it's this grand sort of democratic experiment from the 1700s, and in name only, right? Because it was about taxes and economic welfare and well-being, but it is at least nominally that sort of democratic experiment, and this sort of idea of American exceptionalism undermines that, because in practice, American exceptionalism has undermined the ideals of America in other nations. And it has sort of just, been, it's sort of, command F, find a place, American ideals and civic nationalism with this, which is more common and more broadly found in America. And even, some nations, like Britain, has this sort of sense of civic nationalism too, because they have an old parliament, right? Even though that parliament was for the aristocracy, and it was not necessarily initially for the aristocracy, and there's a House of Lords and House of Commons, that parliament is old and is one of the oldest democratic institutions that are continuously operating today. So they have this whole national myth about civic nationalism too, but this idea of putting America first undermines our values and undermines what it means to be an American. Because if America has no civic values, then it's nothing, right? It's nothing, right? It's so little nothing that like less than 1% of Americans would be American, right? It'd be the Native Americans that would be the America first, or being American first, right? So all these people who claim to be America first really put America last, and I think that, as someone who holds 3 citizenships, at least, and as someone who would like to think of himself as a person first before an American or before anything else, or a good person, hopefully, I find the idea that putting America first, like I find this idea of chauvinism and killing people abroad and funding wars and death and destruction everywhere, and our hand in every pie, our communism abroad means, or like America abroad means no more communism, no more democracy, no more socialism, no more whatever, no more even social programs or Keynesian economics, like, and particularly the Trump administration's view of it, which is literally just whatever I want first, whatever benefits me, my friends, and the wealthiest Americans first, right? And if that's what being America first is, then I put America last, right? I put it behind being a good person. I put it behind being someone civically minded, someone who believes in democracy, believes in liberty, believes in that famous quote, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, if being America first means supporting Trump, then I put America last, and I'm happy with that, because I think truly that's a more patriotic position, if you want to phrase it that way. Although I wouldn't necessarily. So yeah, that's the article in a nutshell, or that was the idea behind it. I don't know exactly what I wrote, but I know vaguely what I wrote. But yeah, I mean, it's also this idea, this struggle with America as a new nation, right? It doesn't have as long of a history as Britain or France does, where they can sort of just have this culture of being French or being British or being Spanish or Portuguese or whatever, that is more in depth and more it's less like it's less of a facade, whereas American culture tends to be just American culture is inextricably linked with liberal capitalism, which is not, in some senses, can be positive, in the sense of like liberal democracy is was tied with liberal capitalism for a while, but I wouldn't necessarily call liberal capitalism the end all be all of economics, right? It clearly hasn't worked, or else we wouldn't have this sort of America First national conservatism that the Trump administration has been espousing for the past, well, since 2016, obviously with the Biden interlude. But yeah, that was my thought process behind it. I didn't really do much research. I mean, I did, but it was basically that. It was like, I don't know how long it is.
Yeah.
But it was a 4-minute read, so it's not like I talked more than I did, but yeah.
I also didn't have to do very much research for my piece. Is I live in Texas, so I get to see all the like campaign ads on TV and talk to people, and I have to educate myself to vote. But I was sort of like thinking about. So okay, we were asking about Ken Paxton. So that's the Attorney General, and there's a runoff. So it's him against John Cornyn, the Republicans, and they're both very like different. I mean, Ken Paxton is like super MAGA, and he will not compromise on any of his values, whereas like Cornyn will compromise and do some more moderate like things. So that being said, it's not a household name. Everyone knows Ken Paxton. And so what that means is like Ken Paxton. Let me look at what I wrote, because I think what it is like the conclusion I came to from reading like polls is like if Paxton wins, then like might be easier for a Democrats to win, just
Right.
because he has these like controversies with lawsuits and with like sort of just superseding the legislative process and just jumping straight to executive action, kind of like in Trump style. And Cornyn, on the other hand, it would be much more level because they're both moderate in some way. But
yeah, have your
either way,
for the recording. I have your article pulled up right now, so I'm gonna just while you did. I don't know, just in case you.
Yeah. But either way, Tallarico does pull more favorably than both of them, so it's all about campaigning and what happens after the runoff is called. I haven't checked when that's gonna be.
It almost, I mean, I haven't followed it super closely, but I have seen. I'm sure I've seen some polls on this, and I also get that impression just from like looking at whatever, like poll aggregators on Twitter or just like organizers from on the ground, that it does feel like sort of Cornyn is a more like of the George W. Bush compassionate conservative ilk, but I don't know how true that is, because it does also kind of seem that it's the same thing with or it was a similar thing with Tallarico and the woman that was challenging her, whose name I'm now forgetting.
Jasmine Crockett.
Jasmine Crockett, right? Jasmine Crockett. She it's very much a vibes-based election as opposed to a policy one.
Yeah.
They're like, whereas like they both have similar vibes in that they're both more moderate vibes, but less, or more moderate rhetoric. Maybe is a better way, a more academic way of putting that, right? More moderate rhetoric, but less sort of, but like more or less the same policies.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I think Tallarico was better on Gaza, maybe?
Gaza and ICE.
Gaza and ICE. So, yeah, but, So do you know what?
But
Do you know
Jasmine
where
is,
they like actually differ in like what they would vote for specifically, Cornyn versus?
I think, if I remember right, with ICE, it was abolishing ICE
Mm.
versus reforming,
Yeah,
and Jasmine wanted to reform it.
yeah,
If I'm, and then for Gaza, I'm not sure.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, it was a little bit ago too, so I wouldn't expect you to know. But yeah. So, but also for Paxton versus his
It's
opponent,
about her voting. It's about her voting
Cornyn.
record. Um, because she has, I don't know. Hold on, I'm trying
No,
to
no.
find it.
But do you know the what like the policy differences between Paxton and Cornyn are like on a practical
Oh,
level?
yeah. Um, hold on. Yeah, so I think uh Cornyn and Paxton, Cornyn was willing to compromise on Uvalde.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's open to some gun restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he is open to Dream Act, like compromising on children born. Uh, what's the Dream Act? Children born in Mexico who come here as children, as babies.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
So we should an
I
Obama
think
era
those,
policy, I think. And that,
yeah, I
yeah.
think those are the two main things that Paxton harps on as Cornyn's weaknesses or like points of
Moderation.
submitting.
Yeah.
But he also just like uses the legislative process normally without like injunctions. Um, and
And which one?
I don't
Okay.
know.
So one of them is the Attorney General, right?
Yeah, Paxton.
Paxton is the Attorney General. So, and Cornyn is the incumbent senator then, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. And just from like talking to people, because you know Texas is a red state still, at least for most elections, it has been. Um, what are like the vibes you're getting? Like, do people like Talarico? Do people like Cornyn? Do people like Paxton? If they could choose between the three, who do they? Who do most people seem to lean towards?
Dallas Fort Worth is a strange microcosm of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Denton is an odd place. It's really like hard to say what voters like. I don't talk to people like,
They're super conservative, or
yeah,
that would
I don't
vote
end up
for.
talking to very many country folk, you
Yeah.
know. But I think that even MAGA is getting sick of MAGA. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think that, that there's a really, at the very least, there's a hard shift away from Paxton.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Cornyn's going to be strong enough to beat Talarico. Also, just rhetorically, I think Talarico is very confident and good at.
He's a good politician.
He's a good speaker,
Yeah.
and I think I'm hopeful that Talarico is won in an onslaught of Zoran-like candidates that are like focused on actually engaging with rhetoric and answering the questions that they're asked and having real political opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of? I mean, yeah. Okay, so from Politico. They say Talarico narrowly beats both Texas Senator John Cornyn and Attorney General Ken Paxton in a general election, according to internal campaign poll shared first with Politico. In hypothetical general election matchup, Talarico leads Cornyn by 2 points, and Paxton by just 1 point, which are both, I mean, I'd imagine within the margin of error. I don't know like that exact poll, but I mean that's not super given all the shit I've seen
Yeah.
over like the past 4 years about Blexus happening, like it doesn't look super possible, but I mean maybe, right? I don't know. Okay, so then real clear polling, there's like a polling aggregator that sort of leans a little bit right, but it's the only one we have now that 538 is dead.
The thing about maps, also though,
Yeah.
if you're looking at maps, is they can mislead you because the concentrated areas are small, but they're blue.
Mm-hmm. I'll link you the thing that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
just so you can just so we can have a more um, uh,
Mhm.
interesting conversation. So yeah, there are two polls that have been released. One from Emerson in January, but they're both during January. But one from Emerson, which had a tie, and then one from the University of Houston, and then according to Politico, there was one internal poll that showed Talarico ahead, which is not
Let me
super to be
find.
trusted.
Let me find the one that I had from Austin polling. Because it was a local news source. Yeah. Here's what I was looking at. Fox 7 Austin. This is from
Talarico holds
March.
small lead over Pakistan U.S. Senate race poll finds. The public policy polling. So yeah, I mean it's interesting though. I mean, we could have a new senator from Texas who is not a Republican, which I don't think we've seen in a very long time.
Texas.
Like, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now because they have like a little timeline. So it's not since 1993. Yeah, not since 1993 has there been a Democratic senator from Texas. And the last guy was appointed to continue the guy who had served for 22 years as a senator, which is you get weird shit with the Senate because they have like 6-year terms too. It's like Manchin, obviously Democratic senator from West Virginia, or was the Democratic senator from West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he didn't run for re-election in 2024 because he would have lost, but he was a senator for 15 years, shockingly, which is, I guess, so 2010, 16, 22. So he won a re-election twice, which I guess is not super impressive, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. The thing is, like with, I don't even. Texas politics are really frustrating because Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott like have been in office for like so long in their positions, and it's no one likes them. Ken Paxton is the attorney general, and that's the only reason that he's not being charged for like countless different crimes. So it's like very corrupt, and I don't know. It's very exciting to think that we could have at least the Senate turn blue.
Yeah, I mean, flipping one Senate seat. I mean, it would be huge for the Democrats too, because they don't like have that many opportunities to win. Like, I don't think the map is that good for them this year. I mean, it's better than 2024 was. So they have, because obviously not every senator is up for re-election with every sort of election cycle. So the midterms right now, the only chance they could have to really gain is Texas, Ohio maybe, because I think Sherrod Brown is running for to become a senator again. He was a senator and then he lost in 2024, but it was very close if I remember correctly. And then Maine with Susan Collins, and then Florida too. I think I've been hearing shit about North Carolina too, but it's still, those are all the possibilities, and like it's not super like it's not the best thing, like it's not the best chance for Democrats this time around.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's still, I mean again the Senate is also just institutionally it's not biased towards Republicans because obviously it wasn't designed for Republicans, but it's biased toward. I mean, it is biased towards Republicans, but it's biased towards rural states, and right now, Republicans sort of have rural voters on a lock. So, you know, so you know,
Yeah.
it does beg the question whether Democrats should be sort of looking towards figuring out how to get people to vote for them in rural places. So yeah, I think that's probably all we got for today, right?
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured. Did you skim those other pieces? Do you want to talk about them? Like,
Right, sure. So overall overview. Sorry, overview. It's okay to celebrate Magyar for now by Antonio Silveira, our CEO. He, it's by me, but it's by him. We just have to fix that. He wrote a piece on Tija winning the Hungarian elections, which they had won. We recorded the episode on the day the results were coming out. So the last episode on the day the recordings were coming out. So longtime listeners, I guess, will know that we were quite excited to see Tija win. But he does point out that Peter Magyar, who is the new prime minister of Hungary, is still a former Fidesz politician and still, I mean, he's liberal in the true sense of the word, right? He's a economic liberal and socially more liberal than, or a liberal conservative, right? Sort of in the vein of David Cameron, if you know who that is. He's a former prime minister of the UK.
okay.
But their whole thing is so. A quote from the article: part of okay, we need to fix that. Part of the Tisha still strongly supports the strengthening of the private sector, be it from small and medium enterprises, but to larger institutions, and also to larger institutions. Tisha has also shown intent for spreading national healthcare funds towards the private industry, leaning towards privatization of health and the use of public's health insurances to subsidizing it. It's also a worrying thing that Peter often ignores LGBTQ issues, referring to it in a, quote, neutral matter, which, although an improvement from Orban, doesn't strike a lot of confidence. Peter Magyar is an improvement, but he's not the end-all, be-all for Hungary. I'd argue he's merely a stepping stone to a better and more democratic Hungary. People should not forget their duties under democracy, and specifically one's duties to make their leaders accountable for their actions. And one of the big things for Hungary is that, which I don't think he maybe he does. Okay, he does step on it. Okay, sorry, or touch on it. He said Peter Magyar is better for Hungary overall, just because he's or better for Europe overall, because Hungary was sort of this, like a lot of European sort of like bureaucratic systems have unanimity involved in it, just because they're all countries that are voting, right? One country, one vote, and you have to have unanimity in order to pass certain things. So Orban was using his government, or whoever he sends as whichever minister he sends as the European whatever to whatever, to veto a bunch of aid for Ukraine, and just in general, like, sort of slow down European federalization, which I know Antonio at least used to be a campaigner for Volt Europa, which when he was studying in Denmark. So he is, which is a European Federalist Party, which believes that, or I mean, 27 European Federalist parties, which believes that Europe should be one country in the sort of with a similar system to the U.S., where each member state has, like, but federalism, right? Like
I
the
see,
government
yeah.
together. Yeah. So that was interesting. The G Word Haunts PA Primaries by under a pseudonym New Jersey Roundhead. Written from Newark, New Jersey, he talks about how in Pennsylvania's 4th district, I believe, or Pennsylvania 7th, district, a former prosecutor and union buster, Ryan Croswell, goes up against the president of firefighters and a candidate endorsed by Bernie Sanders, Josh Shapiro, and Bob Brooks. Damn, I need to fix this formatting issues. Sorry, I'm like looking at the article and there's like It looks ugly. Um, uh, Basically, there are, at least within a certain amount of, or at least within PA7, there's been some controversy over people, or over like actually calling what's happening in Gaza a genocide. So he says, when asked about the genocide in Gaza, she pushed back, compared calling the actions of Israel, which in my view is a genocide, to using the N-word, and she called it the G word. Her position may be surprising. However, when seeing that she has received funds from a PAC previously that is related to APAC Group, the United Democracy Project. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I just laughed at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing, but in the end, it's serious. I mean, the American bullets are going there, but it is funny. He's a good writer. And then he writes a little bit on New Jersey's 11th district, which is, I believe, his district, or the one that he lives in, rather. Not to dox him, but he is, but it's talking about just generally sort of how people talk about the genocide in Gaza, which is like, an issue, and it's a big issue for younger voters especially, which are the voters that the Democrats lost in 2024 because they didn't have the balls to. I think actually I don't think NFP's unity problem. There we go. Nouveau Front Populaire. This one I do know a lot about because I'm French. In the fall of the French municipal elections in the middle and late March of this year, the parties that make up the left-wing alliance Nouveau Front Populaire, New Popular Front, have a choice to make in regards to La France Insoumise, the La France Insoumise conundrum. Specifically, whether including this far-left party in a grand coalition of the left come the next presidential elections in 2027 and the parliamentary elections in 2029. So he talks about how sort of they're a populist party, and overall there are benefits and there are negatives, right? So the coalition is pretty large, so it includes the Social Democratic Parti Socialiste, Ecological Europe Écologie Les Verts, Europe Ecology, the Greens, the Parti Communiste Français, French Communist Party, and then La France Insoumise, which is France Unbowed. And there are basically like lots of coalition politics in France, where like there are 20 parties that maybe will get a seat in parliament, and they're part of right now 3 different alliances: the presidential alliance, or it's called the presidential majority in Congress, which is not a majority, but which is centrist to sort of center right, to basically the right wing. The like far right Union Extrême Droite, which is Marine Le Pen's party, and like a faction of the Republican, what's called Les Républicains in France, which is a center right party, and like a faction of them split off, and decided they were going to be in an electoral pact with the far right, and then another faction of them decided, no, we're not going to do that, and it was very dramatic actually. In 2024, during the legislative elections, they literally like occupied the building of the Republican office, the people who didn't want a coalition, I think. So, and then because they were the party leaders, so it was sort of a weird thing. I don't know how. I haven't checked up on that, but basically, he makes the argument that because LFI are populists, whereas the Parti Communiste Français really aren't. I mean, they're more left wing probably, but they are at least equivalently left wing. But yeah, and then La France Insoumise. The big controversy around them is Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is the I guess leader.
Sorry, bless you. What did you say?
Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
Okay.
Who is the leader, I guess, the chef du parti, and he is a rabble rouser. Let's say he's a former member of the Socialist Party, and he left in like 2014 to found the it's called the Left Party, and then La France Insoumise, which is France Unbowed. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting topic. I would have loved to have Great on here to talk about it, but he had conflicting items. The items being sleep.
Yeah.
Because it's 3 a.m. there right now. I don't blame him.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, that's all from me. For next, see you next time, I guess. See you next week. Did you write an article? and hopefully these our 50 listeners will also also be there again this week and next week. All right. Well, bye. Have a good one.
Well, you too.